All right, everybody. Welcome to the show today. Very excited to welcome my friend Joshua Smith on the show. Really excited for you guys to hear, his story, what he has going on, and the whole topic of this whole show, the exit strategy, basically your retirement plan, and what he has to say. Because from what I've been hearing from other agents, and especially Josh over the past several months, it's really hitting home. So thanks for coming on the show today, Josh.
Yeah, excited to be here, man. It's an honor, brother.
Yeah, definitely honored to have you on here too as well. So, let's kind of start off with, obviously, top 1% realtor in the country for a very long time, ran a very, large team, but then one day you were like, forget all that. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, dude, so I jumped into this industry at 23, dude. And I'm 44 years old now. And, when I was growing up, and maybe it wasn't everywhere, but definitely where I grew up, man. I mean, small town, grew up in Michigan, 10,000, people, and, graduated high school back in 2000. And at that time, it was like, all right, man, you go to college, you get a good job, climb the corporate ladder, I had some hesitancy to go to college, but it was just the thing that you need to do. If you didn't, you're classified as a loser and, by your parents, social groups. And, so I'm like, all right, man, I guess I gotta go to this college thing. But I'm in there, dude, lasted about 18 months. And I was like, dude, this is not for me, man. Just something fell off. I'm like, this is for the birds, dude. I gotta, have something different, and the whole corporate world just never really attracted to me. I always knew I wanted to do something different. And I thought that was going to be health clubs. I'm really passionate and I'm kind of obsessed with the health and fitness industry. And, but now, so I dropped out of college, start working in the health clubs at a high level, sales, management, but then I was like, all right, man, if I want to create what I want to create, like I got to get an ownership on my own thing. 23 years old, college dropout, about $1,000 to my name. The facility I wanted to create was going to cost me 800 G's, okay. Didn't have 800 G's laying around. Nobody's going to give me a loan. So then I was like, all right, man, what can I jump into, that I can just bank some cash? And I'm like, okay, this real estate thing, man, I can go take a, 2-week crash course. It's less than $1,000 to get licensed, to get started. I'm selling other people's product. I'm like, dude, I'm a hard worker. I love sales. I love people. So the plan was just to be in and out in like 4 or 5 years in real estate, go fulfill my dream, then raise the capital, go open up a health club. And when I jumped into this real estate journey, and I always say that quickly, real estate became my obsession, where health and fitness remains my passion, but real estate very quickly became my obsession. I was like, oh, this is the vehicle, but again, my whole thing was, dude, I don't want a job. I wanted a business, man. I wanted freedom. I wanted to be able to make good money, but be able to go do what I wanted, when I wanted. I've always had a problem with like authority and being told what I need to do. And, I've just always been a stubborn, bullheaded motherfucker, right? And I honestly, I thought the path of that was building a real estate team. So jumped in this business at 48 deals my first year. Then I hired my first assistant, 103 deals my second year. Then I started bringing on agents, scaled to just over 300, and just kept scaling that thing. And I thought, man, if I build this team in the right manner, that's going to allow me to make the money I want to make, but be able to, I wanted freedom of time, freedom of location, where I could go do the things I wanted to do. And I thought the team was the path. And it took me about 10 years to get to the point where I could exit from production, and put the right people in place, where then, okay, now I had freedom of location, semi freedom of time, but then, man, you don't have freedom of headaches. You don't have freedom of liability. You don't have freedom of responsibility. It's like, no matter what, man. I mean, I had a $85,000 a month nut that I had to pay for, whether my agents were popping deals or not. And then there was a lot of growth and expansion strategy, bottlenecks, so I spent 20 years climbing this mountain to get to the top of this mountain and realize, shit, I picked the wrong damn mountain, so like the whole name of your podcast, I try to do it with that vehicle. I just realized, it took me 2 decades to realize this, but dude, I got the wrong damn vehicle. Then that led me to the first time really open up my eyes to looking at, okay, like what is the right vehicle that can allow me to truly do this? Knowing what I know now, that can truly allow me to do this. So for the first time ever, I was open-minded to look at the EXP model. Now, before this, dude, I talked more shit than any human being about EXP probably on this planet. I thought it was the Amway of real estate. They were a competitor of mine, but the reality is, dude, is I didn't fully get it. I didn't fully understand it. I never gave it I mean, don't get me wrong. I had a bazillion people pitch me, but I was too closed-minded to really see it. But then, and I think a lot of times in life, until you're experiencing enough pain, you're not open. Like you probably heard the saying that the teacher appears when the student's ready. I was finally ready. And then my eyes were open. And then once I saw it, I was like, holy crap, dude. So I did kind of something that I don't know anybody else that's done. Because once I saw it, man, I was like, holy shit, dude, like I gotta go. So I go to my director of operations. She was my first admin ever hired, but then she just kept, leveling up and did an amazing job. And I mean, she was really pretty much the CEO of my team at this point. So I go to her and I'm like, hey, what would it take? So this is like a Tuesday. I'm like, what would it take for us to make this move by Friday? And she's like, it would take you pissing every single person off, right? Like, we can't do it that. Like, she's like, we got to give 30 days, but I made the decision to dissolve my team completely, not try to exit, not try to sell it. I'm just like, I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to go build under this new umbrella. Because I looked at this as, hey man, this is a vehicle where I can build a brokerage inside of a brokerage. I can build a 40,000 plus agent organization within 10 years, international, because they're already in 29 countries, for $85 a month, man. I can leverage their 2,500 staff members, have no liability, don't have to deal with accounting, get to focus on the two things that actually lead to growth that I'm good at, which is recruiting agents and then coaching and supporting those agents. So I was like, hey man, I finally found the right vehicle and the game that I know I can win.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's why I love your story so much. I think it's perfect because, if you're listening to this right now, I hope that you just heard, what he was talking about of, he built this huge team. He's been in the business for a very long time, and, that should, show you the power in this. And one thing I definitely wanted you to talk about and touch on is I've heard you say this several times, just talking about, how much money it would take to put in the stock market and, also versus investing into real estate and what you've heard from others who have invested into real estate and the stock market and, the huge difference there on that.
Yeah. So, first I started doing the math on just the stock. I'm like, dude, if I would have been here if I would have joined EXP day one of my career, not counting recruiting, not counting, the rev share piece, just for the stock from the, 7,000 plus homes that I sold as a real estate agent team leader, the 20 years of, having 20 consecutive years of iconing. I'm like, dude, I'd have over $100 million worth of stock if I would have been here this whole time, and that, dude, it almost made me throw up, man. I was just like, what the hell, dude? Like, I mean, I got all these awards, accolades, I was always kind of number one, all of that. I mean, I got peak of my, team. I was the 30th in the whole entire country of all agents, all broker, all teams. But all those awards and accolades that I got, they're sitting in my garage collecting dust. I can't take them in the bank. I can't cash them in. My brokers never gave me a damn thing. I mean, I got my commission checks, but I also paid them insane amounts of splits and fees, and it's paying, I mean, I'm doing the math one year, the year that I left for Remax, I paid them $250,000 in fees that year for just running and operating my team. Plus I had to pay another 100 G's for coaches. And, so like once I started running the math and the numbers, dude, it made me sick. And I was like, what the hell, dude? So, because 71% of this company is owned by us agents. And I think the issue that most have, and I did too, right? Like I can't blame anybody for their eyes not being open because I had awareness of this model for 10 years. I kept my mind and my eyes closed for 10 years. I tell you, my wife is so damn sick of hearing this because I'm always like, babe, I should have been smart enough, intelligent enough to be able to, see it 10 years ago because our life would be so much different, but I didn't. Right. But it's, we're so focused on the immediate, so focused on the now, we're not playing the long game. And this is in all aspects of life, right? Whether it be health, or I'm going to eat the meal that I want right now because it tastes good versus thinking about, hey, what are the hobbies and what's my lifestyle? How do I want to be operating when I'm 60, 70, 80, making those, long-term decisions, but in the moment. So I mean, we've got stock, right? And then with rev share, so one of my good friends, he made the move about 8 years before I did. So he's been here at this company 9 years. He's got a 10,000 agent organization now, 10,000 agents. And he still has his team. He and his team, they close, 100 plus million a year, but then over this, period of time, he's done a great job at it, 10,000 agents where he makes just over $300,000 a month in residual rev share. So when I was doing the calculations on that, I'm like, dude, they'll take $90 million after taxes that you'd have to raise to put into the stock market to pay you out that same residual income. And I'm like, what are the, like, dude, this is the best vehicle. I'm like, you can't replicate this in real estate. You can't replicate this in the stock market, meaning that you can grow this fast without zero capital. And yeah, you got to invest a little bit of time. I did the math 7 months into my journey. And I'm only 14 months in right now, right? But at 7 months in, I did the math on this, because at that point in time, I was making about 15 G's a month in rev share. And I was like, dude, that would take me $4.5 million of that I have to raise after taxes, free and clear, to invest in the stock market or into real estate to pay me out this same residual. And I did it with no expenses. Yeah, a little bit of time, intentional focus, strategy, a little bit of time, and a Zoom account. And I don't have to manage, I don't have to replace roofs. I don't have to replace AC units. I don't have to manage tenants. I don't have those same headaches, and I'm not saying to not go out there and invest in other asset classes. I've just never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with a lot of things that you say, and I'm sure a lot of other agents, team leaders, brokers will as well when they listen to this. I knew about EXP. Not, I've had my license 8 going on 9 years now. I knew about them my first year, and in the business. And what's crazy, it's like a full circle moment for me, is an agent I started with that told me about EXP actually joined under me at EXP after coming on. So it's kind of crazy, but yeah, I feel the same as far as, wishing I would have done this sooner. Also, same realization of, before I even got my license, I knew I wanted to be a broker. I knew I wanted to start my own brokerage and bring something to my area that didn't exist here. But a lot changed by the time that, I actually made that happen. And then being a broker owner of a brokerage for 3 years, my eyes quickly got opened,
Yeah.
talking to other brokerage owners, franchise owners, and, people across the country and people like you, and, just really starting to realize, plus just getting older, right? I think that has something to do with it as well. By the way, you don't look 40, man. You still look 20.
Appreciate
But
that.
my eyes really, really got opened, and I was like, what am I doing? So I'm really passionate about marketing. And in the marketing world, there's a term called TAM, which stands for total allowable market. And it's one of those things, like, when your eyes and your mind finally get open to it, you see things in a totally different light. And what it means, what it stands for, is your total allowable market that you can consume, that you can get, right? And so when you start paying attention to other people at higher levels, or where you want to get at, and what I'm trying to get at is, all right, so being a local brokerage owner, I am confined to my local area. And so, like, in my area, it's really small. There's like less than 1,000 agents here, and there's like over 40 brokerages. So, even at the highest level, I could only get 1,000 agents. Like, that's it. I'm capped. Now I got to go open up another franchise somewhere or partner with somebody else. And there's all that overhead time trying to figure everything out. And I was like, why am I doing that? It makes no sense. Instead, I can come here where we're at now and instantly plug in and be open to the entire country and the world, right? What, over 28 countries that we're in? Well, you even have some agents in some other countries, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in 10 countries now, man.
That's crazy. Yeah,
Yep.
you would never ever have that had you not come here. There's no way. There's no way to do that. Not at this level. Not at this scale at all.
Yeah, I mean, look
Um,
at the franchise that you were with, right? First class, and I was involved on the corporate side. I was a minority owner, and kind of the franchisor side of that platform. And like, okay, like trying to get into Canada, like, dude, with all the red tape. I mean, just trying to launch new states, launch new country, dude. It was so much resistance, so much hard work. Here, to your point, I looked at this of, hey, man, I'm able to plug immediately into a global playground. There's 16 million licensees globally that we have awareness of, because you have countries like France, which we're in France, so I can recruit in France too, or partner with agents strategically in France, but you don't have to be licensed in France. Yeah, right. So there's at least 16 million. I don't know how many there are on top of that. But to your point, I mean, it's just There's just so much insane opportunity.
Absolutely. I want to go back to one thing you said earlier that I think is really important to touch on. You talked about awards, and I said this on one of my videos recently, just talking about all these brokerages. They kind of not saying nothing about anybody, but it just is how it is and how it's always been. But times have changed. But they give you awards. I got awards sitting on my shelf right here in front of me, but they're doing nothing for me, and they're never going to do anything for you. But nobody's giving out awards for built the best passive income or exit retirement plan, right? Like that should be the awards that are being passed out. Like those are the ones that everybody should be, clapping for and really, really striving for, which is ultimately, what you're doing, what we're doing now, and why we came here. Um, I got another question for you. Let's see here. What's the biggest lie agents believe about building a downline?
That they can't do it. You know, I was actually, I think it's earlier to maybe it's yesterday. On yesterday's call, I was talking about this, but I'll get some agents that, wow, I don't want to recruit. I can't recruit. I don't like, dude, all we're doing is recruiting, right? You're either recruiting buyers, recruiting sellers, or you're recruiting agents. It's all the same exact process. If you look at this game, it's get people to know you, like you, trust you, be aware of what you do, stay in touch frequently, your business continues to grow. So then every day, okay, it's identifying somebody that didn't have awareness of you yesterday, get them to have awareness of you today, offer them something of value in exchange for their contact information, get them into the funnel, and then you play the game. Right. So, okay, I got to, have a lead gen strategy, lead follow-up strategy, appointment setting, appointment conduction strategy. It's all the same damn thing. But agent attraction or recruiting, whatever, I'm old, so I still call it recruiting and what's called attraction, is easier. Right. It's much easier than going after buyers and sellers. So the first thing is, I get so many people that just have this fear around it. I'm like, you're doing it all day long. You're just going after buyers and sellers that you do a transaction, you get paid once, right? If I go recruit an agent, I get paid indefinitely for as long as they stay with the XP. Or into my whatever company, or somebody's listening to this at a different brokerage or team or whatever, so it's kind of like, I remember one year in my business, this was a couple year period of time. I went from this was I don't know, 17 years ago, early on in my career. I was at 42 million. Then the next year I did 47 million. And I was like, what the hell, man? I need to be growing from 40 million to 80 million to, having at least 40 million jump years, not 5 million. So I reached out to one of my mentors and I was like, dude, kind of walk through what I was doing. And I was like, what's your recommendation? And he just said to me, he goes 50. I'm like, dude, I don't know what that means. And he's like, dude, you're focused on one transaction. All your energy, effort, everything you told me with your strategy is next transaction, next transaction, next transaction. You need to focus and allocate your time onto things that are going to lead to a minimum of 50 units, 50 deals, right? So, okay, going after builders, going after institutional investors, bank on foreclosures, or, going after agents. Now that agent may not close 50 units a year, but through the lifetime that they're with you in your organization, at least 50 closings. Yeah. Right. So you're getting paid more than once, so it's anybody that's a brilliant operator realizes, okay, if I go after buyer seller and get paid once, if I go after an agent, I get paid many, 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 many times. Right. So that's the biggest thing is I think just that fear and just understanding the game's the same and it's actually easier. The secondary thing is, and this one I totally get, not everybody's in the same position that I am to be able to drop production, drop everything and just go all in on agent recruiting, right? I know that my situation isn't the same. It's unique, but it doesn't take that much time, right? You can do massive damage and everybody's got time, but you can do some massive damage with just investing 5 hours a week or even 2 hours a week at this, because here's what's cool about this, right? Is we all get to work together collectively. This is the first ever everyone wins model I've truly seen. So an example with any of my agent partners, I'm like, dude, look, you don't need to recruit. I'll do the recruiting for you. I'll do all the heavy lifting for you. All you got to do is do a quick introduction, get them to be open-minded about at least hearing about the opportunity. So maybe you're at a networking event, meet an agent, once you've connected with them, I'm like, all you got to do is go in with something like this. Hey, I know you're probably really happy where you're currently at, but man, I think you do amazing things over here, our brokerage, our organization. If you're open to it, love to do a quick introduction to you and my mentor, Joshua Smith. Just so you know, everything that he does is zero pressure. So he's not going to try to recruit you, push you, pressure you, none of that BS. He's just going to walk you through how we work, how we operate, all the additional coaching, training, system support, mentorship that we provide to help ensure you accomplish your real estate goals. Then answer any questions you have. And look, at the end of that call, if you think it's a fit for you, great. If not, that's okay too. I just think it'd be well worth your time to just jump on a quick call with them. Is that something you'd be willing to do? Like, then all you got to do is just do a quick intro. Hey, Josh, meet Sarah. Sarah, just talk with Sarah. She's interested in scheduling a meeting with you to learn more about joining CXP. I'm like, that's all you got to do, right? Then I'll respond to the text. Hey, great to meet you, Sarah. Here's my personal Zoom scheduling. I'm like, I'll do all the heavy lifting. I'll jump on the call, right? I know that they came from you. So once they decide to make that move to partner with us, I'll park them under you. You get paid. I get paid. We all get paid. We onboard them. We coach them. We train them. So with this, like, it doesn't take that much time. And here's the thing is, there's nothing more powerful than compounding interest. Just go ask Warren Buffett, right? That's what he always says. So like one of my good friends, Jake Hinder, that's been in this company for about 8 years, right? Brought in, he's got about almost a 10,000 agent downline organization. And when I was originally, new at this company, talk with him, he's like, look, dude, he goes, I've only averaged 2 agent recruits every single month, my whole entire experience here. Like, if you break it down, it's just been 2 a month, but he's been consistent at it. But because of how the brilliance of how the organization is structured and rev share structured, that allows for that compounding. So now, homeboy's making several thousand G's every single month, owns a private jet, right? Has the thing that we all set out to go out there and truly build. Has financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, and has his own private jet. So now he not only can he go anywhere he wants, he can just fucking jump on his own jet and go there, right? And to me, that's really inspiring, right? Because you think, I got to go build this thing, man. I got to recruit 15, 20 a month. No, I mean, it compounds over time.
Yeah, you said a couple of things that I want to break down and talk about. One was talking about being open-minded. I think that's probably like the biggest hurdle you of all people probably know, since you're focusing on this every day, is how not open-minded most people are. Do you experience a lot of that, a lot of rejection?
Yeah. In it's, hey, well, man, I'm really loyal to my broke. Okay. But loyalty, when not reciprocated, is cowardice. Mm-hmm. So you're not loyal, you're a coward, right? And I'm not saying that to be a dick, but it's like, okay, let me just, for anybody that's watching or listening to this, right? Like, it's like, okay, if something happened to you and your family, is your broker going to step in and make sure that your family's taken care of? Okay, like one of my good friends, she's at this company. Her son was about a year ago, really bad car wreck. He's a teenager, had some really bad traumatic brain injury. I mean, thank God he made it, but had some really bad brain injuries. And it's been a year of surgeries and having to travel over the country to work with certain brain specialists, to get him back, to get him recovered. And she was telling me, she's like, look, now this was a mega team leader. This chick was, one of the top teams at KW, that ran one of the top KW teams in the world. And then, before moving to EXP, but she was strategic, focused on rev share. So rev share through EXP, right, allowed her to be able to take the year off, travel to see all these, specialists, to put the time, energy, and focus on her son to make sure her son got the care that he needed to fully recover from this extremely unfortunate accident. And she tells me that, man, if it wasn't for rev share, like, none of this, like, I couldn't have done this, but people don't think about shit like that. Right. But it's like, okay, you're insert broker name that happens to you in that scenario and situation, like, what are you going to do? Are they going to pay you to do that? I'm not saying that EXP is going to pay you to do that. They're going to give you the vehicle that allows you to build the residual income. So when those things happen, I got another gentleman I was talking to not too long ago, and it was a really sad situation, but this dude's been, he's in his, can't remember his exact age, but 50s, 60s, either, I think late 50s. But he has kidney failure, and he's having to go to kidney dialysis multiple times a week. But he's like, hey man, with this drains my energy going through this, it's like 40 hours a week of his week is just gone, because of not just the time he has to spend at the kidney dialysis treatment, but I guess it just kind of wipes him out for the whole entire day. But he's in a situation where he has to sell real estate. Now, this dude's fighting for his life, but he also has to sell real estate to be able to pay for this, because he doesn't have residual income set up. Right? Where EXP gives us a vehicle very quickly, at essentially no cost, no liability, minimal headaches, right? To be able to go create this where shit, when that moment happens to us, to our family, to whatever, it's there. And then, I didn't think about this in my 20s and 30s in my real estate business, but now that I'm in my 40s, I'm married, I got 3 kids. I'm like starting having thoughts like, man, what if something happens to me? Like, not only are my kids without a father, not only is my wife without a husband, but like, are they going to be okay financially? And yeah, I've got some assets, we got some savings, we got some life insurance, but I'm like, it's going to be different for them. So not only am I out of the picture, but then financially they're taking a hit. I'm like, screw that, man. Like, I got to make sure, like, I don't know about you, Ben, but like me as a man, it's like my responsibility to make sure my family's taken care of. I think any man that is out there that, okay, if something happens to them and their family's not taken care of, it's like, you got some fucking shit to do. And if you're not applying urgency to that, I don't think your priority's in the right place.
Well, I 100% agree with you, man. On those topics, those subjects is, obviously one of the many reasons for creating this podcast. But you talk about, medical cases or, where like there's a big joke in the industry of agents can't really go on vacation. But when you have something like this passive income that comes in, then you really can because you're not worried about having to sell a house once you get to a certain level. Then it's about I choose to help people, buy and sell houses, and you can, definitely leverage yourself. But one thing that a lot of people don't talk about with rev share that I was looking into pretty hard the other day, is it's willable, and it was one of the reasons why, I came to EXP. I actually thought about going to real. And I actually bought stock into Real. I own stock right now into Real because I thought that's where I was going. I think theirs is willable, but it's like some other different thing or whatever versus EXP. But the biggest thing was that you had to stay in production over there, and I know we've kind of talked about that before. Versus here, you don't have to stay in production. And I mean, there were several reasons, but that one was definitely one of the main. Is because I wanted the rev share, I wanted this more passive income, and that's the whole point. Like that defeats the whole point if you've got to stay in production to be able to receive the rev share that you worked hard for to get. Like, why do I want to build that and then not be able to get that the next month or whatever when you know when for whatever reason, medical reasons, or I want to go on vacation or whatever the case may be, and not be able to get that. But on the medical side of things, that really resonates with me. I wish I would have had that when I first started because my son has a medical condition. He's way better now, but years ago there was a lot of hospital surgeries, multiple surgeries, very large quadruple organ transplant, and I'd have given anything. And that's part of the reason why I got into real estate is just to have a little bit more time freedom, on that subject. So like I would have died for something like this. And then going back to the loyalty thing, this is what I say about loyalty all the time. I love what you just said. I'm gonna have to start using that. But it's a two-way street, right? And a lot of people forget that loyalty is not a two-way street. And they become loyal to somebody so much that they start to feel bad, for having to leave them or get away from them. And they don't realize, that it's not being reciprocated on the other end of the side of that.
Yeah.
So
And look, and I'm a loyal person myself, as well, or at least I said that I was, but I realized my loyalty was not allocated to where it should be allocated.
yeah.
Because okay, I stuck around in business partnerships or brokerage relationships because I was quote unquote loyal. But it wasn't what was best for me and for my family. Right. So then you got to start asking yourself, who are you loyal to, man? Are you loyal to your wife, to your kids, to your family, to you and your life, or you loyal to this person, I mean, it's like my first brokerage I was with for 10 years. Like I said earlier, I was paying, over $250,000 a year, not receiving any value. I'd outgrown the level of, like, it was amazing in the beginning because they were good mentors to me, but then very quickly, like I outgrew their expertise. I outgrew their production. So then it kind of reversed where it's like, okay, like I'm contributing way more to this relationship there. I'm not getting back anymore. I don't, like my knowledge, so then now I'm paying $250,000 for nothing, but then it was kind of well, shit, man, these guys helped me get to where I am, but again, when I made that move or like, okay, at EXP running my team with that same amount of volume, it cost me about 50 grand a year. Okay. Well, 175 grand a year of savings shit, that can do some great things for my kids, for saving up for their college funds or weddings or, whatever. So I had to start asking myself, okay, well, yes, I'm a loyal person, but where does my loyalty need to be applied first? What's most important?
What would you say to agents or people that think that this whole rev share stuff is a multi-level marketing or pyramid scheme?
I'd say that pyramid schemes are illegal. I'd say that yes, it's a multi-level marketing. We're a real estate company, not a multi-level marketing company, but it's modeled after the same way. And I'd say multi-level marketing is freaking brilliant. 95% of the agents that join brokerages join because of their relationship with another company. So my last company that I was with, right? I recruited an Alan Kushmakov. Now I didn't recruit him. I didn't intentionally go after him. I influenced his decision to join. So I'm on a call with him yesterday, and we're on a call with a lady that reached out to us that's thinking about partnering with the XP. So then I was like, Alan, like, why did you join my home group? So just called him out in the call. I'm like, why'd you join my home group? He's like, well, because of you. And I was like, okay. And I told her, I said, Alan joined because of me. Didn't join my team. Alan went and built his own team, selling, hundreds of deals every single year. Like, dude's a player. He joined because of me. I'm like, I didn't even get a thank you from my broker. Then I have a gentleman, George Lawton, long-term good friend of mine, that we both kind of grew up in the RE/MAX system. I was the first, I was the number one RE/MAX agent in the state. I was like the first, big player to make this move to this kind of nobody company that was up and coming, but I was like, hey man, I'm going to save a ton of money by being over here. And like everybody else wanted to make the move, but they were scared because we were so indoctrinated on the power of the balloon and the brand. And so I was kind of the guinea pig. George is watching me and reaching out to me. Well, then eventually George saw my business just blowing up over then the money I'm saving. So then George Lawton came over because of my influence, right? Because of our relationship. Now, George Lawton, number one team leader, I think on the planet, does like, I think it's best, like 1.7 billion a year, I didn't even get a thank you. Now imagine if now I got Alan to now come with us at EXP and partner with the CXP, working on George. I don't know if he will or not. But imagine what that would do if I was here. Right. So like we're all doing it, but now you get rewarded on it. And so if you look at this, it's a multi-level marketing company, think about it differently. Okay. The company cares about us, right? So instead of paying this money to recruiters, they don't have to, they choose to give 50% of the revenue that they collect back to us agents for helping grow the company. So I don't know why people have a hate towards affiliate marketing or multi-level marketing. It's like, hey man, if I got this experience or this product and I'm loving it, I'm using, I'm getting great results about it, and I tell a friend and the friend uses that thing and I get compensated for helping the company grow, like that's a good fucking thing. I don't know why anybody would have a beef with that. Like one of my buddies, Joe Yates, he's up in Oregon. So I actually met Joe because my mom was selling her house. My mom needed a good realtor, connected with Joe. Actually, my brother knew him. They kind of were in the restaurant business together. He was an investor in my brother's restaurant. But I met Joe through that situation, right? And we became good friends. Well, Joe, dude, he's never focused on rev share over here, so he's been here 6 years. I'm talking with him, right? Like right after I joined, we reconnect. But he said to me, he goes, dude, I've never intentionally tried to recruit anybody. He goes, but over the years, I've had 18 agents reach out to me because he's a top producer in his market. Dude slays it. He goes, I've had 18 agents reach out to me saying, hey, Joe, man, see you continue to crush it. Unhappy at my brokerage, think about switching. Man, I mean, you happy there? Like, do you think I should join? Yeah, dude, this place is freaking awesome. Definitely think you should join. So they joined. He didn't try to recruit them. They just joined, right? That 18 has now led into 260 plus agents in his downline. He then tells me he haven't made a less than 100 grand a year for the last 3 years. He and his wife just bought a second vacation home in Cabo that rev share funded, and he's never intentionally went after it, right? So it happens to all of us. So people that think that, this is a bad thing, I'm like, what the? They're just so damn indoctrinated because their brokers talk so much shit about this company. Just reframe it. Think about it. You're getting rewarded for helping the company grow if you choose to. If you choose to introduce somebody to this, you don't have to. 88% of the agents at EXP don't care about it. They don't do anything with it. They're just here to become top producers. And by the way, EXP dominates at a production standpoint. When we look at this, we sell 100,000 more units than any other real estate company in the United States. Our per agent productivity is 3x industry average. You go into any state, pretty much top number one individual agent, top number one team leader. Like, we dominate from a production standpoint. So it's where all the top of the top go anyway. Right. But then from there, if anybody ever joins because you helped influence that decision, even if it's just somebody reaching out, like in Joe's situation, they share with you the revenue that they're collecting. Like, I don't know how that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I had it written down. It's a win-win. I wanted to talk about that. It's like a lot of agents, team leaders, broker owners, they just don't understand that it's a win-win, right? We all get incentivized. I like how you broke it down and basically, reframed it, talking about kind of we're all getting. Sorry, guys, we had a little technical issue right there. We were just talking about a win-win. How important it is to understand that this whole situation is a win-win. And I know we've talked a lot about recruiting, attracting, making money with this and stuff like that. But it truly is a win-win. Just like Joshua mentioned earlier, and I try to talk to agents about. I'm sure that you've probably brought on an agent at some point in your career if you've been in this long enough to your brokerage, and then you got nothing for it. That's great to help people, right? But you're truly incentivized, right? If you help them win, then you're going to win as well. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, and if I
quickly.
can hit on one other point there, then okay, maybe you don't want to focus on rev share, right? Also think about the stock. So one of my good friends, been here 10 years, 10-year in a row Icon Award winner. So every year, at least here in the US, every country has different dollar exchanges, but I'm just going to speak to what we get in the US for stock. So every year when you close your first transaction, you get $200 worth of free stock. Every year when you cap, you get $400 worth of free stock. Every year when you Icon, 20 transactions on your cap. So most markets, that's between 25 to 30 deals. Not that hard if you are really focused at this and you're strategic and you got the right skill set and process. Okay, you can close 30 deals a year in about 30 hours, 20 to 30 hours of work a week, right? So achieving Icon every year where you get your 16,600 back in stock, very achievable for anybody that really wants to focus on this, right? So then though, I'm asking them, hey, what was stock valued at that first year? Not counting the other 9 years, just year number one, 22 cents. Well, the stock's done pretty damn well over the last decade. That stock from year number one, 16,600, they haven't touched it. Still their Morgan Stanley account that EXP provides us. Now it's worth over like 900 G's. Right? And then count the other 9 years. Another buddy of mine came in 2017, Icon his first year, got a $16,600 worth of stock. He's telling me that stock's now worth over 340 grand. Just from that first year, not counting the other years. So just also think about the stock where it's like, because like, look, we are in an industry where the vast majority in this work till you die plan, I was talking with an agent that's been doing this 30 years that ended up partnering with us here. And he said to me, he goes, Josh, he goes, it's really interesting. He goes, I've been to a lot of real estate agents' funerals, but I've never been to one retirement party.
Man, that's powerful. That's exactly what this is about, man. And you talk about the stock. That was a good point to bring up. Is even better is to emphasize on, like, that's just for doing your job. Like, literally, everybody's doing the same thing. You can go to any brokerage and make money off of helping people buy and sell homes, but they're literally just giving it to you just for doing your job. Just for they're incentivizing you to be a top producer, and that goes back to that win-win, right? Like, if you become a top producer, if you work hard enough to reach that level, then you're making your money back. It's almost like paying them nothing, but like they're incentivizing you to become better, and so therefore your life becomes better, and then they're giving that money back to you as well. So where do you see your rev share in like 3 to 5 years?
So I've been here 14 months. By the time this probably comes out, might be 15 months. April 1st will be 15 months. So I'm at 575 now. I really thought I'd be at 1,000 agents in my first 12 months. So now as number one, personal recruiter for all of EXP, and my first year, and I will be again this year. So I keep getting told that my growth is amazing and, all of this, but it's still not where I really wanted it to be. So I don't know. I'm happy about it. I'm proud about it, but at the same time, I'm kind of like angry about it. That I want to be further ahead. But it is a little bit of a learning curve, and it takes some time to. I mean, I've recruited to my team. I had a coaching company for 10 years. But this is a slightly different model. So there was a little bit of a learning curve and so I missed that target. But my goal is 40,000 agents in 10 years. So within 3 years, I really want to be at the run rate because I need to be at the run rate of recruiting 18 agents per day, 7 days a week. And I want to be at that run rate within 3 years. So hopefully within 3 years, it'll look like, I don't know, 5,000, 5 or 6,000. But what's more important to me is hitting that daily run rate of where I need to be to hit that 10-year target.
I think that's really going to come down to, like I've heard you say over and over again, is finding your generals. Obviously, that's something I'm trying to do. Is hopefully be one of those,
Yep.
so we can both help each other get to where we want to go. Um, what does this look like for an agent that's stuck in production? What would you recommend to them to slowly be able to get out of that?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get out of production, you got to, I mean, we all have bills. Like, okay, money is not my God. However, I understand that we live in, this fiat economic, system where everything costs money, everything, right? Especially now, right? Like you take your family to Chick-fil-A, it's $85. Like it's the most wonderful time to be alive as a freaking citizen on this earth than any other time in recorded history. It's so hey, you got to have a path for, okay, what are my bills? What is my income? And really factor that in of like, okay, when you're not selling real estate, like, what do you want to be doing? So when I'm having, when I'm kind of game planning this out with agents, I want them to think about, okay, not just how much money do you need, but like, what do you want to be doing? I don't know anybody that's like, oh, dude, I just want to retire and be a freaking prisoner to my house. No, I want to retire so I can go travel, so I can go enjoy life and hit the beaches and all the locations that I want to go out there and see, okay, what's it going to take to do that? Right. So let's just say that ends up being 25 grand a month. Okay, well, then I know you're probably going to have to build over time a 500 agent downline, right? And so that's going to probably take getting 2 FLAs per month over the next, 5 years and or sooner than that to hit that target. So now we can start gamifying and planning this out. But first off, we gotta have, okay, what is the plan and path? And the quickest, easiest path that I've ever seen, and I've invested in a lot of different things, is rev share. And I'm not saying this to try to get any, because, oh, Josh, you're just saying this because you want to recruit me. No, dude, go join somebody else. I'm not like, I'd love to partner with you guys. Ben and I would love to partner with you guys, but I'm not saying this to for me. I'm just telling you, after somebody that's been in this industry for 21 years, and yeah, I had a lot of success and I did a lot of great things, but I also got my ass kicked more times than I can count. And I experienced so much more resistance than I needed. So first thing though is, okay, like if all my income's coming in, because selling transactional real estate is a job. You don't have a business, you got to restart over every single month. So what is the plan to replace that income? How much of it do we need to replace? And what is that path? So my recommendation would be rev share, right? It's the easiest. You don't need to go and save up 200 grand. Hear agents all the time of, well, my plan is to invest in real estate. Okay. How long have you been doing this? You've been in this game 10 years. How many rentals do you own? 0. Well, okay. Like, how's that plan going? Like, why don't we move you to another plan that you can play without any freaking money? Couple hours a week, 0 money. This is a game you can play. We can all do, even if you're brand new in real estate, right? Then from there, coming up with, okay, based on what that plan is and how quickly you want to hit it, okay, what's the amount of time that you need to allocate to this thing weekly? Because here's the thing, we got to play red light, green light, right? Like, okay, you need income today. So let's just say you decide that, hey, I need to have 3 deals every single month. So you can, after splits, fees, expenses, maybe your nut to run your life is 25 G's a month. 3 deals a month gets you there. Okay. We got to make sure that we got that. Like, that is non-negotiable. We got the strategy plan, the plan with precision on your calendar, got all that in place, all things that, you and I help our agents with all the time. Then, but we got that in place, then, okay. And maybe that takes 4, because to close 3 deals a month, you shouldn't be working more than 40 hours a week. I know a lot that are. If you are, it means you have the wrong strategy in place, you have the wrong skill set or the wrong process and systems. right? One of those things are off, right? Like one closing a month as an individual agent per closing should be about a 10-hour time week allocation. And I know a lot of agents that are working 60 hours a week, only closing 2 homes a month, but again, they're just creating a lot more resistance than they need to. Their strategy's off, their skill set's off, or their process and systems off. It's one of those three in one of those 3 buckets. So we can fix that and adjust that. So then from there, okay, what's the amount of time we need to additionally allocate? We don't stop the sacred time for the now revenue, but that we need to allocate. So let's just say it's 5 hours a week. Okay, let's get it committed to the calendar. Let's get the strategy. Let's make sure we're being intentional with that time. And then here's the thing, as this rev share starts building up, now we can slowly start bringing this time down. Just like when I was exiting from my real estate team. It's like, okay, in the beginning, it's like 90% of the revenue was from me. 10% were from my agents. So I had to make sure 90% of my time, energy, and focus was allocated to my business, right? Because that was 90% of the revenue. Then, okay, I had to be very strategic and efficient with my agents. So then though, if I did that right, okay, now they bump up to 20%. Now I can back my time down to 80% on my own production. Then they scaled up to 30%, back my time to 70. So I'm playing red light, green light, like just like we did with the kids. So I'm slowly exiting out of having a job, AKA your own personal production, but I'm not having to take a dip in revenue. And with the right strategy and in the right focus, it's not that difficult to go out there and do this. And here's the thing, man, her, Carolyn, okay, she's been in this company 5 years. First 4.5 years, just focus on production, and she's just a badass listing agent. She's like the best person I've ever seen at probate. She's doing that, hammering this thing. Well, then about 7 months ago, something clicks internally within her. Like, hey, I think I want to start focusing on this rev share thing. Now she's still out there listing properties and selling a ton of properties through probate, but dude, she just got intentional with it. 126 agents that she brought on in 6 months.
I think part of that has to do with having the right people to surround herself with. I don't know if it was you or Mike or somebody that helped her realize to use the probate stuff to do that. So that was probably part of it. I don't know the full story, but it kind of sounds like it. So that's one thing, is like having the right people around you. That's why I came over here and obviously joined under you and Mike as well, because I watched you guys for going on my entire real estate career. And so when you came over, that was kind of like the light bulb. After knowing everything else of being a brokerage owner, it's like, okay, we got to do this. You mentioned investing again, and it reminded me of, obviously this is not easy, but it's definitely easier than investing in a real estate or stocks, because that's a whole nother, game. You got to go learn, you got to figure it all out, or you got to pay somebody to manage your money and do that. But we already do what we do now, selling real estate, that we could do to help attract agents over. And that's just talking, having conversations, negotiations, handling objections. So it's definitely way easier to do this versus trying to go figure out how to invest in real estate, and not to mention how long the time it's going to take to make the same amount of money investing in the real estate and stocks as well. And then last thing is something you mentioned, talking about how looking at the rev share and breaking this down is, I like for agents, or agent, team leader, broker owner that's looking at this, to think about it this way: is, you mentioned like 3 deals basically takes care of, your monthly bills, right? I like to call it survival money, right? A lot of agents that are doing very well is because they've already got their survivor money taken care of, whether it's their spouse that's, making the money and taking care of everything. But, when you get in that position where your bills are covered and you don't have to worry about it, things completely change as far as whether you're selling real estate and now your mind's in a, completely different state of mind, and it's a little bit easier. You don't have that commission breath, as a lot of people say. But when you could do this with rev share and get, at first, it may be your car payment gets covered, right? And then makes things a little bit easier. Next thing you know, your mortgage gets covered. Next thing you know, your groceries, your gas, your cell phone bill, everything you need to survive every single month. Like, the sooner you can get there, obviously it's going to be a lot better. And then if you choose to still sell real estate, which most will because they're, young, then you're in a completely different mindset and space.
Yeah. And what I'll tell new agents too, dude, is because, again, just from my experience by being here, right? So, I track this very carefully versus, okay, like what was my journey as a new real estate agent? And then what have I seen with new agents that join my team, you know, what was their first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, 12 months, you know, it was like, okay, rev share month number one for me, rev share check was $499. Okay, that ain't paying much, right? But then rev share check number two is 2,200. But then by month three, man, I started making 9 Gs. Hit 9 Gs. Well, I was like 8,900 and some change my third month. So when you start looking at that, though, I mean, how many real estate agents that are new to jump in this business that are making now, $9,000 in their first 3 months? Very few. The average first time, new real estate agent closed their first transaction in 9 months. So for new agents that I know that are business minded, that I know want to focus on, that are wanting that residual income, I'm like, hey man, like we got a decision to make. Yeah, right. Like now you can do both for sure. But if you don't already have residential, resale income coming in yet from those transactions, and you got to focus all your time and energy on something, but the objective is to get to residual income. I'm like, you can do it about the same amount of time if you're putting full-time focus in this thing. Like you can grow it fast if you're putting full-time focus in this. Not selling that for everybody, but like for somebody who's brand new, it's like you can pull that off.
Yeah, I'd give anything to be a new agent and be sitting here listening to this and then come on board with you and hop on these calls. You mentioned calls earlier. If anybody's wondering what he's talking about, is we have weekly calls on agent attraction. Yesterday, I think, was probably one of the best ones that we had. And I've already recommended a few to go definitely watch that. But Joshua, I really appreciate you hopping on the call today and downloading your knowledge on everybody. And I'm sure they appreciate that as well. And if if any of this resonated with you, anybody watching and listening into this, make sure you click the link in the description below, so that way we can hop on a private, confidential, no pressure call to just simply talk about this, go over this. I can, if you want, we can get Joshua on the call with us too as well, whatever you have. But yeah, really appreciate you hopping on the call today, Josh.
Yeah, it's an honor, man.
Thank you.